about 80%. And they have very small land area. And they grow food, a little bit of it to sell, to get variety in their diet and buy other things, but most of it to consume themselves. And when you grow crops, there's all sorts of problems you can have in terms of pests. And even once you've grown the crop, if you're going to store it, that is a very attractive food source for insects or birds or a variety of things other than humans. And so you have to worry about that post-harvest loss. What we're showing here is this is cowpeas, and these are a protein-rich crop that's grown a lot in West Africa. I went out and met lots and lots of farmers who grow this. And the reason that they weren't growing it in the past is because that the insects would come in. There are small insects called weevils. They would come in and eat all this. And once they eat it, not only do you have less beans, but the beans you have taste bad. And you can't sell them to anybody because people don't want to have weevil remains as part of their diet, which makes perfect sense. And so really it was only grown in a few places. And they tried single bagging, and that didn't work. Finally, anyway, the breakthrough that they came up with is this triple layer bag, which is actually quite inexpensive, but it's got 2 layers of polyethylene and 1 layer of artificial plastic canvas mesh type. And so farmers are given this, and if you stick your cowpea in here, seal it at the top, the weevil can get through this outer layer, but then it suffocates. And so it's not going to be able to get in. And so you can certify your crop as being weevil-free because it's in one of these bags that are branded and very high quality. And so now there's over 1.7 million households that will increase their income by $150 a year, which is a lot. That's like a 30% increase for them. And that's a pretty dramatic thing. So, when you think about a variety of these innovations, you might say, okay, how hopeful should we be? Well, I would say quite hopeful. If we can get innovators to care about these problems, we can get broad awareness so that rich governments continue to stay generous. That's very much under threat right now, as all the budgets in rich countries are in deficit and people are trying to cut back. The first thing people talk about cutting back is foreign aid. And in the US, there are people, I won't say whom, who've suggested completely slashing the foreign aid budget. And we have a number of countries in Europe. Spain cut their budget recently quite a bit. Even the Netherlands, that doesn't have a very big budget, there's a group that's proposed virtually eliminating their development budget. And they've been one of the most generous in the world. Generosity is sort of defined as aid as a percentage of your economy. And the figure everybody promised to get to is 0.7%. And only 4 countries actually do that: Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. So to have one of those back off would be a huge blow. The UK will get there next year. So in the face of deficits even worse than the US, they increase their aid budget. So this idea that you can improve the human condition and more dramatically even than pure economic growth. Pure economic growth is very, very important. In fact, Stanford Business School just got an amazing gift from the Kings that is about using entrepreneurship and economic development to foster livelihoods in these developing countries. It's a phenomenal thing. That is a piece that comes when you've done health, when you've done agriculture, then you do absolutely have to get the other piece going, because as you get agricultural productivity, people move to the cities. What are they going to do? Well, some form of commerce. Anyway, there's an amazing book called Getting Better by Charles Kinney. I think we actually have some to hand out here because it's a fairly short book, but actually explains this paradigm of why innovation has changed things. Why countries in Africa, literacy rates that were 20% are now 75%, why life expectancy that was even in non-AIDS countries about 35 or 40 now, in the non-AIDS countries up over 60, and why that's happened. And amazingly, it's not many of the activities that have driven this like getting vaccines out, have not been covered in the mainstream. I never heard of a guy named Jim Grant who ran UNICEF in the 1970s. He's the one who got vaccines out broadly to everyone. He probably saved more lives than anyone who's ever lived. I'd never heard of the guy. When I finally did hear of the guy, I said, oh, I want to read a book about him. Well, the book was out of print. So not too many people were demanding that book. But there are a lot of heroes in this game, and that's why it's fun to work on, and certainly something that I'm very optimistic about. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for some questions. So we have microphones on both sides, so just line yourself up, and let's start on the right side here.